Igor Shesterkin is unable to make a save. The Rangers quit after a very promising start in Tampa that turns into a 6-2 loss. And Zac Jones is a healthy scratch because reasons.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1213 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the latest embarrassment for our beloved Blue Shirts is a 6-2 defeat on the road against the Tampa Bay Lightning, a game in which the Rangers got off to a heck of a start. It looked like they were energized, maybe feeling good after the break, got some rest, got some relaxation, came back with a clean slate. But you know what? As I say all that, it also makes me realize this team is very, very quickly burning through their entire allotment of clean slates. How many clean slates does this team get? We are less than halfway through the season, and we keep thinking that maybe there's a certain moment where the tide can change here. Oh, things will get going after they, after they get back home after this long road trip here. Or things will get going after, this tough stretch where they have to play 3 games in 4 days, or like 4 games in 6 days, or things will pick up after this the holiday break. That'll be their clean slate, and that'll get them going. I think this team at this point, certainly for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you as well, no more clean slates. They're done. They've burned through, like I said, their entire stock of clean slates this season. It's just a mess. There is nothing that this team does well right now. There is nothing that is fun about this team right now. And the collapse from last season is just something that needs to be studied in a lab because, you know what? Some regression maybe was to be expected. I think it's certainly very difficult to have the best record in the NHL for 2 straight seasons. I mean, you need to be laser focused night in and night out. If you want to have the best record of all 32 teams in this league over a grueling 82-game regular season, you need to be dialed in and focused every single night. It's certainly not an easy accomplishment. It wasn't an easy accomplishment when the Rangers did it last year. Won't be an easy accomplishment when somebody else, won't be the Rangers, when somebody else does it this year. But with all that said, this collapse is just incredible. It's beyond any kind of rational explanation. When you look at the fact that, again, and I know I've said this before, but it's basically the same team this year that we saw last year that did all the good things that it did last year. It's unbelievable, and it's just another terrible loss here. And I want to talk about Zac Jones and the decision to make him a healthy scratch, which, as it turns out, I mean, that's probably the least of the Rangers' problems right now, but I still want to go there and make this point. But let me just say, man, like right at the top of the show here, last season, one of the most fun seasons I've ever had as a Ranger fan, certainly as the host of this podcast. It was an absolute blast. This year, they are on a path right now. This is going to be my least favorite season of Ranger hockey ever. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not going to affect anything on this podcast because whether the Rangers are doing awesome, whether they're doing terrible, or anywhere in between, we're all going to show up here and we're going to do this podcast. And we're all going to talk Ranger hockey together. And in the case of this season, obviously, let out vent. That's the word I'm looking for. We're all going to vent a little bit together, and that's going to continue. And don't get me wrong. Love doing this podcast. I'll talk about them no matter what's going on in Rangerland. Always happy to come on here and talk hockey with you guys. But, man, from a fan standpoint, this is as bad as it gets. This is as unfun as it gets. This is as, I guess, laborious. Is that the word? Where it's like a labor to watch this team play hockey night in and night out. I mean, we were feeling good in the first period. They came out flying with their heads on fire. I thought their puck recovery in the offensive zone was better than we've seen all season, actually getting some second and third and fourth opportunities there. And then it all just goes down the drain. Things fall apart. Igor Shesterkin picked the wrong night to have an off night because the Rangers, again, they actually kind of played well in this game, or at least they did at the start. And he couldn't make a save, and that deflated the team. And there's just not enough fight in this Ranger team to think that they were going to come back. Once they were down by 2 goals, that was it. They're not coming back from that. Even 1 goal is pushing it at this point. But with all that said, opening monologue out of the way here, let's go ahead and talk about this decision to scratch Zac Jones. And I decided earlier in the day, once this news broke, that this is going to be the first thing that we talked about on here. Again, opening monologue aside. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not trying to make it sound like Zac Jones has been Brian Leach 2.0 this season. I'm not going to go that far. I mean, there's people that love Zac Jones. I like Zac Jones. I'm not going to make it sound like, he's a Norris candidate or anything like that. But when you look at this Ranger team from the start of the season up until right now, I have a hard time believing that Zac Jones is anything worse than the Rangers' third best defenseman so far this season. I would put Adam Fox at number 1. I'd probably go Schneider at number 2, and then I'd go Zac Jones number 3. And again, he's had some rough games just like anybody else has. One of his issues, something that he does that I think has kind of landed him in the doghouse, and it does stand out, is he seems to pinch when he really shouldn't. There's times where the puck's in the offensive zone, and I don't know if this is just a case of Jones trying to make something happen. He knows his team is up against it, and they're struggling, and they can't get any offense, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe he's just trying to force the issue a little bit. But that's the last thing the Rangers need right now. The last thing the Rangers need to do is have a defenseman pinch when he shouldn't. And now you've got another odd man rush going the other way. The Rangers give up a boatload of odd man rushes. They have absolutely no clue how to defend them. So you put all that together, it's not a good formula. And I think that might be something that has sort of landed Jones in the doghouse. But when you look at the other Ranger options as far as defensemen are concerned, and we're not going to even talk about Fox or Schneider. They should both be out there. But Keandre Miller, he returns for this game. He's missed 6 games before that. I'm fine with Miller slotting right back in. I mean, look, they've been terrible, right? They got to try something different. I think Miller would get back into the lineup regardless of how the Rangers have played recently. And honestly, even though he struggled this season, I think he should get back into the lineup. He's played enough good hockey over the years, been a part of enough winning teams there that I think he deserves his spot back into the lineup. So that's fine. Don't think he was great in this game. I mean, some physicality, but also some shaky plays as well. Ryan Lindgren has been struggling all season. It feels like he has done slightly, and I emphasize slightly better recently. That's a low bar to clear. I do think Lindgren has ever so slightly picked it up recently, but we can't act like he's had a great season. And there he is every single game out there on the top pairing with Adam Fox. We had that play a couple games ago where Lindgren lost a 95-5 puck that led directly to a goal, never misses a shift, never sees a hit to his ice time. Just doesn't happen. He just goes right back out there. And then you get the 2 new guys, Urho Vakanainen and Will Borgen. And my question here for you guys is, how do these 2 guys, who have both been here for a combined total of about 15 minutes, how do the 2 of them automatically, as soon as they get here, as soon as the ink on the trade papers is dry, how do they immediately slot in ahead of Zac Jones? How do you immediately just assume that Urho Vakanainen and Will Borgen are automatically better options than Zac Jones? Zac Jones is your homegrown guy. And I realize there's been some changes to the coaching staffs, the front office, all that stuff ever since Zac Jones was drafted. I get that. But how do these 2 random defensemen, one of whom is 25, that's Vakanainen, one of whom is 28, that's Will Borgen, who really have basically just been 2 guys in the league. I mean, and Borgen's had some decent seasons. He didn't have a good season this year with Seattle before he was traded over to the Rangers. Vakanainen was a former first-round pick, hasn't ever really lived up to that. So why do these 2, the second they get in here, the second they step foot inside the building, why do they immediately slot in front of Zac Jones? Don't understand that. And this isn't even me picking on Vakanainen and Borgen. I don't think either one of them has been overly impressive since they've gotten here. And I do understand that they're both stepping into a dumpster fire, along with having to learn new teammates, learn new coaching staff, learn the new system, learn where the coffee maker is, whatever it might be. They're in a new spot, and obviously things are not going well for the Rangers. So they have a little bit of a learning curve ahead of them. But I just don't understand why these 2 guys, these 2 veteran defensemen, who, again, have basically just been 2 defensemen in the league, nothing overly special about either one of them, how do they come in and immediately leapfrog your own homegrown guy who, like I said, I think at worst has been the Rangers' 3rd best defenseman this season? I don't get it. I know there's going to be some people that point to Zac Jones and his lack of size. Okay, I get that. I understand that. He's certainly not the biggest defenseman in the NHL, not by a long shot. He's actually on the pretty far on the opposite end as far as one of the smaller defensemen. But I don't know, man. To me, this just doesn't send the right message. I think that Jones has earned his spot in the lineup. I think he should be out there instead of Vakanainen. And I don't even care about the whole lefty-righty thing. I know there's going to be some people that point to that about, well, you need 3 lefties and 3 righties. No, you don't. You don't need that. You can work your way around that. You can have one defenseman play on the opposite side that he usually plays on. Braden Schneider's already shown an ability to do that. You can do that with him. And while we're talking about the defenseman, Braden Schneider on the 3rd pairing, that's a little ridiculous too. Again, I realize part of the reason for that is the whole lefty-righty thing. But bottom line, the guy that is probably your 2nd best defenseman not being in the top 4, that just doesn't make any sense either. But another point that I'll make about Jones here, this is a Ranger team that recently has struggled miserably when it comes to creating offense, which really only gives you more of a reason to put Zac Jones into the lineup. Now, to be fair here, Jones has not exactly been an offensive juggernaut this season. I understand that. He's got 1 goal and 7 assists in 26 games so far this year, so he's not really doing a whole lot offensively. But I like his chances of, making a nice pass and setting somebody up, or, manning the second power play unit. I like him in that role a heck of a lot more, or I like his chances of doing those things a heck of a lot more than Vakanainen or Lindgren or Borgen. Right? I mean, am I off here? I just feel like Zac Jones has earned his spot in the lineup, especially when you look at the alternatives and realize how underwhelming they are. And I thought Borgen in this game here tonight played probably one of his better games as a Ranger. Again, not the highest bar to clear ever. I did like that instance where, who was it? Was it Paul? I think it might have been Paul for the Lightning, was driving toward the Ranger net, and Borgen was able to get back, bodied him up, got in his way, struggled, and basically just took one arm and just threw him down to the ice. It was awesome to see that. They were wanting for a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. He got in his way and he knocked the guy down. So that was cool, at least. And it is refreshing to see a defenseman like Borgen use some physicality, not just reach for the puck the way some of these other defensemen do, and make a play by, using his size and his strength to his advantage. So I will say that at least. But as far as Zac Jones goes, just do the kid a favor and trade him. It's become so painfully obvious at this point that the Rangers are never going to trust him. They are never going to give him any kind of a leash. They're never going to give him any kind of a rope. He's always one mistake from being out of the game, for being benched or losing ice time, and 2 mistakes away from being a healthy scratch. Zac Jones is allowed to play for the Rangers only when there are literally 0 other options, because whether it's, these 2 new guys, Borgen or Vakanainen, they're going to jump him in the pecking order. Ryan Lindgren can play bad hockey all season. He remains above Jones in the pecking order. Nils Lundqvist at one time was ahead of Zac Jones. Eric Gustafsson, who I liked more than most Ranger fans, but he was ahead of him all year last year. Jones couldn't sniff the ice when Eric Gustafsson was the 6th defenseman. This year, we're seeing guys like Chad Ruhwedel and Connor Mackey. I think they've both been in the lineup at least once over Jones when Jones was not injured. Are the Rangers sure they don't want to bring back Jared Tenorti and Patrick Nemeth and just slot the 2 of them ahead of Zac Jones too? I mean, we could do that. I don't think either one of them are particularly busy right now. Why not? Why not? Look, at this point, it's not going to happen for Zac Jones with the Rangers. And again, I'm not making it sound like he's Brian Leash 2.0. I want to reiterate that because I said it earlier in this episode. But he's been better than a lot of the other guys that they continue to run out there, that they continue to give big minutes to, that they continue to put in a prominent spot in the lineup. 5v5 penalty killing. I just don't get it. I don't know what Zac Jones has done to essentially never get a chance. At this point, they're not going to use him. The ship has sailed. Zac Jones is never going to get any kind of a rope with the New York Rangers, so it's time to trade him. It's time to move on from Zac Jones. He can get a fresh start somewhere else and probably have a bigger role for himself wherever he goes than he currently does with the Rangers. But anyway, we're going to keep everything going in just a second. I had a true blue breaking point during this game, not just for this game, but really possibly for the entire season. I'm going to explain what that was in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by our very good friends over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It's definitely happened to all of us. We've all had a few subscriptions that we didn't even realize that we were still paying for, and Rocket Money makes it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for enduring this particularly amazing brand of New York Ranger hockey that we're all being subjected to on a night in and night out basis. For the everydayers, so next episode, Rangers play at the Panthers on Monday. God help us all. But whatever happens there, we'll be back to talk about it after that game ends. That's where I am with this team right now. Even if the Rangers go out there and beat the Panthers, I don't know how much better I'm going to feel. It's probably going to seem like it was just a fluke, because there's so many things wrong with this team right now. Even if they come out and they play a great game, like, will they be able to do it again in the game after that? I mean, I'll take my chances. I'd be happy to see the Rangers beat the Panthers in any fashion, but I don't know. Any win against the Panthers coming into the season, that would be a great win. That's the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference. That's the team that won the Stanley Cup last season, the team that knocked you out in the conference final last year. Any win over the Panthers, you're feeling amazing afterward. If the Rangers win this game on Monday, I'll be happy. It's going to be nice to see them finally win a game. Am I going to think like, oh, we're back, we're onward and upward, and we're going to go on this run now? Probably not. Probably not. That's just kind of where things are right now. But anyway, to keep everything rolling here, I mentioned just a second ago that I kind of had a breaking point in this game as far as like everything on the season, everything that's happened. I'm going to explain what it was here. It was the shorthanded goal that the Rangers allowed late in the first period. To kind of set the stage here, Rangers are on the power play. Panarin makes a pass across the ice to Mika Zibanejad. There's a good amount of the net open. I mean, not like a yawning net or anything like that, but I mean, you can bury this shot. There's a lot of guys in the NHL that are going to bury this shot. Mika Zibanejad is very clearly no longer one of them. I don't know what has happened to this guy. It's just incredible watching him night in and night out and seeing some of the things he used to do for this team and just wondering how anyone could have fallen off this hard, this fast. But the net's wide open. Mika shanks his shot and breaks his stick. This wasn't even a one-timer. He was going for like a wrist shot here. And I guess you could say it was a one-timer. But the bottom line, I've made this joke in the past. Mika Zibanejad on these shots has a better chance of breaking his stick than he does of scoring. And we saw that here. He breaks his stick, not able to convert. And then a little bit later, Tampa's got the puck in the Rangers zone. You get a steal right by Trocheck. Trocheck leads the rush up the ice. The Rangers go in. Mika has a one-timer that is saved, and Tampa breaks out going the other way. And I'm watching this develop, and I'm seeing there's all four Ranger forwards are deep in the Tampa zone, and none of them seem to be in that particular of a hurry to stop and get turned around in the opposite direction and back check, because they all were completely past all the Tampa Bay players, and Tampa Bay starts to break out, and the Rangers are just standing there. All four forwards are just standing there. They eventually realized what was happening. Eventually, I guess their brains kind of just kicked into gear there, and then they started to back check. But by this point, it's too late. Tampa's basically got a 3-on-1, and Ryan McDonagh goes up the right side. Fox is looking to take away the pass, which as far as I could tell, it looked like he did. So McDonagh shoots, and it just goes through Igor Shesterkin. And I said something that I cannot repeat on here. Certainly some colorful language involved. I probably wasn't the only one. May have punched the pillow a little bit. I'm usually pretty chill watching these games, just trying to, not get too high or not get too low. But I'm watching this first period. This is why it was the breaking point for me this year. I'm watching this first period, and the Rangers are largely dominating. They had a really, really good first period. They're out there. They're skating. I mentioned earlier the puck recovery in the offensive zone about as good in this first period as I've seen it from the Rangers all season. A lot of second and third chance opportunities. A lot of guys had their legs. They were skating. There was some physicality out there as well. It just felt like this team was ready to go for once, at the start of a game here. And just like that, it's taken away because you give up an odd man rush while you're on the power play, while all four of your forwards get caught in deep, and Igor Shesterkin can't make a save against Ryan McDonagh, who hasn't scored all season up until this one. It just goes right through him, under his arm, and into the net. And at that point, I just lost it. It's just infuriating, because this is one of the best periods that the Rangers have played in a long time, and they're gonna now, because of this late goal, go into the locker room down 2-1. Not to say the game was over, but the way things have been going for the Rangers lately, when you see something like this happen, if this was last season and something like this went down, okay, that's all right. Not ideal, but we'll get it back. We got 40 minutes to go. The Rangers are going to go back out there. They're going to do their thing. They're going to get back into this game, and they're going to win it. Now, whenever something goes wrong, I just expect it to get worse. And there's no way I can be alone in that feeling either, because I'm not the only person here that watches this team night in and night out. This is what they do. This is who they are now. When things start to go bad, they can't stop the bleeding. It only gets worse. It snowballs, it avalanches. And then we have to watch all these Rangers star players skating around the rink with these blank, vacant looks in their faces and just like not knowing what hit them, just completely out to lunch. And that's basically what happened. It was all downhill from this point on. Tampa, went on basically a rampage, and you have this shorthanded goal here. And that's another reason why I was so infuriated about this shorthanded goal, because not only has the Ranger power play just fallen off a cliff, not only does the power play just look pathetic on a night in and night out basis, now they're giving up shorthanded goals. Like, you can't even. They gave up 2 shorthanded goals in this game. What are they, like, one for their last 23, like one for their last 27 on the power play at this point? They're giving up more shorthanded goals than they're scoring power play goals. So that was infuriating as well. But of course, we weren't done, because as I just alluded to, the Rangers gave up a second shorthanded goal a little bit later in this game. Even when the Rangers were down 3-1 in this game, I don't know why, but I had a little bit of hope that maybe this is the game where the Rangers can get back into it and come up with one of their, comeback wins that we saw so often last season. Just because, again, all the reasons I mentioned earlier, I thought they were skating a lot better. The intensity seemed to be, better than wherever it had been in recent games. They seemed energized in this game, but it never happened, and they gave up another shorthanded goal. This is the one where the Rangers get the power play because Tampa had too many men on the ice. Now, I will say that was a welcome change, because you hear too many men on the ice in a Ranger game. We've heard that a lot recently, and it's always against the Rangers. It was nice to see it go the other way. But 11 seconds later, Tampa Bay scores a shorthanded goal. That's another thing. All these goals that Tampa was scoring on the power play and while shorthanded, they all happen in like 15 seconds or 11 seconds or like 35 seconds, whatever it was. They were all quick strikes. As soon as the Rangers were on the power play or shorthanded, Tampa Bay was scoring a goal against them. But anyway, Tampa's up 3-1 at this point. The Rangers win a faceoff, a couple of passes. Panarin passes over to Mika Zibanejad, and Mika just completely whiffs on the one-timer. Now, this wasn't completely on Mika, because it was a good defensive play by Tampa, and Panarin's pass was ever so slightly deflected on the way over to Mika, but Mika still whiffed at it. And honestly, like, if we're being real here, even if that pass had gotten over Mika, what are the chances that Mika is going to hit this one-timer cleanly? That's an adventure in and of itself right now. I mean, forget about scoring. What are the chances he's even going to hit the puck cleanly? Not very good. Like I said multiple times, I said it earlier in this episode, said it a few episodes back, better chance of Mika breaking his stick on a one-timer right now than he has of scoring. But anyway, he whiffs completely. The puck goes the other way, 2-on-1. Only Panarin's back. You got Hagel over to Cirelli, tip in goal, 4-1. And, again, you see Mika Zibanejad, and man, like, it's just unbelievable with this guy. Have you ever seen a downfall like this from a Ranger player? Just that blank, vacant, like, just staring into space look that we see so many times from these Ranger players. Mika Zibanejad's probably the leading culprit. But if you saw, like, at the end of this game, the Rangers along the bench, they're all just, like, staring into space. Nobody's talking. I mean, they were down 6-2 at that point. What is there to say, right? But still, it's just not a good look. And once this happened and the Rangers gave up their second shorthanded goal here, I wrote into my notes at that point that Peter Laviolette cannot possibly go into the next game with the same power play unit intact. And to his credit, he actually made a change a little bit later in this game. The next power play that the Rangers got, Mika Zibanejad was on the bench for the start of it. Alexi Lafreniere was out there in his place. Now, if we can just get Will Cooley onto the ice in place of, I would say, Chris Kreider, now we're really cooking with gas. And now there have been some pretty legitimate changes. But, the power play didn't really do any better. I mean, you're only changing one player. You had to do something different. And I hope that there are some changes going into the next game. I mean, who knows if it's going to make any difference. But it was nice to see there be some kind of a reaction here from Peter Laviolette. Because Mika Zibanejad, I mean, it's dumbfounding. It's an impressive collapse, what we've seen from him this season. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Going to talk a little bit about Igor Shesterkin and him just clearly not having it. We will do that in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up for the day by talking about Igor Shesterkin, who, I mean, if we're being honest, he was just flat out bad in this game, and he did it on a night where you just really didn't want it to happen because, like I mentioned, the first period in this game was very, very good for the Rangers. And it ended very badly with the shorthanded goal. But overall, the Rangers clearly had the better play. They had 10 of the first 12 shots on goal in this game. They were buzzing, and Igor just couldn't make a save. And the first goal that Tampa scored was on the power play. We'll put that one on the Ranger players rather than on Igor. We'll put it on the skaters. A lot of guys just not reacting. Who was it? Kucherov? I think Kucherov got around Keandre Miller up the right side, just went right around him like he was standing still. Centering pass. Will Borgen isn't in position to defend it, and Tampa scores. But Igor ends up giving up 5 goals on 14 shots. This is on a night, mind you, where the Rangers outshot Tampa Bay by a wide margin. The final tally for shots on goal was 44-25 in favor of the Rangers. Now, it's skewed a little bit by the third period. The Rangers got 19 shots on goal in the third. Tampa only got 7. You got to figure Tampa was kind of sitting back a little bit in the third period there. But be that as it may, the Rangers still outscored them by a very significant margin. And you've got a goalie in Igor Shesterkin that was just unable to make a save in this game. And then you had Igor basically storming to the locker room. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to talk about the KO punch here as far as, the one that finally knocked Igor out of the game. You've got Carrick taking a penalty, which is becoming a pretty evergreen statement. I've mostly have liked Sam Carrick this season. I feel like as fourth line center, you could do worse. He was trying to give the Rangers a spark by mixing it up during a play stoppage. He's usually in the middle of that kind of stuff. He's a good penalty killer. Plays physical, wins faceoffs. He's doing everything that you would want a fourth line center to do. My God, does this guy take a lot of penalties? He does not get nearly enough ice time to even come close to justify the amount of penalties that he's taken this year. And he's got to get that under control. I believe it was 3 minor penalties was the final tally for Sam Carrick in this game, but this is one of them. Rangers are shorthanded. Igor fights off a shot. This is early in the power play. Tampa gets a stuff in goal. You got Fox, Lindgren, Mika, and Kreider on the ice. To be fair to Igor here, not a whole lot being done by any of these 4 players to prevent this. It is so easy right now for opposing players up against the Rangers to get to the front of the net, drive to the front of the net, stand in front of the net while drinking a beer, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really make a difference because whatever your approach is as an opposing player of the Rangers right now, if you want to get to the front of the net, if you want to hang out in the crease, hey, man, the door's wide open. Come hang out right next to our goalie. There's not going to be any resistance. You're not going to face any pushback. You're not going to get any physicality. You're not going to get cleared out of there. Nobody's going to get the puck away from you. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. So just come out and hang out, stand right next to Igor Shesterkin. There is zero trepidation. If you're a player, an opposing player against the Rangers right now, you have absolutely nothing to fear by going to the front of the Ranger net, by setting up shop in the Ranger crease, whatever it might be. And that was certainly the case here. I mean, Kreider and Mika are just standing there watching this play. And Lindgren and Fox weren't much better. I mean, Fox was at least tied up with somebody, but my God, dude, like this, you can't make it this easy. Igor made the initial save. The puck's bouncing around there. It eventually, takes a bad bounce, goes off of Gensel. I think like his shin pad goes into the net. So I guess a little bit of a bad break there. But, if you're the Rangers at this point, how can you expect the hockey gods to do you any kind of favors with any kind of puck luck? Got to mention that for sure. But then also, Igor, this wasn't completely unstoppable either. I mean, I know that the puck was bouncing around. He wasn't getting any help, but it kind of just trickled right through him and went into the net. And that was it. They yanked Igor Shesterkin. We're less than halfway through the second period at this point. He's pulled out of the game, and he didn't even stick around on the bench for the rest of the second period. You did get the obligatory fist bump between Igor Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick. Anytime there's a goalie change, I mean, you guys watch hockey, when the goalie is being pulled and the new goalie's going in, you get the quick fist bump, maybe a quick word or two, whatever it might be. But there's always some kind of an acknowledgement between the two goalies in that situation. But Igor never took off his helmet, never stopped, just made a beeline, went right down the tunnel into the locker room. Now, there was certainly some debate on social media here as far as like whether he was justified in doing this, whether this was not a good thing to do. Joe Micheletti didn't seem to like it very much because Igor, like I said, left. He was pulled out of the game halfway through the second period and did not come back for the rest of the second period. Look, the Rangers have bigger problems right now than whether Igor Shesterkin sits on the bench for the rest of a period or not, including the play of Igor Shesterkin, because that hasn't been good. We saw him before the break turn into really strong performances there. He stole that game against Dallas for sure. I don't think the Rangers win it without him doing what he did in that game. But he largely has not had a good season, if we're being completely honest here. As far as like whether this was the right thing to do or not, everybody's debating it. I wrote into my notes at the time, as long as he's back out there by the third period, because at a certain point, like Igor, he's probably mad at himself. He's probably mad at the situation, maybe even a little bit frustrated with his teammates, whatever it might be. He might have been ready to explode at that point, to the point where I got to get out of here. Like, I don't want the cameras to see this. I don't want to see them. I don't want them to catch me like cursing up a blue storm or whatever that expression is. I need to break some things. And I need to do it in the privacy of my own team's locker room. So I can understand that. I would have liked to have seen him eventually go back out there for the second period. To me, though, as long as he was back out there for the third period, I don't have an issue with it. I really don't. Again, they have bigger problems than that. And he was back out there for the third. By then, I feel like, you've had time to cool off a little bit and blow off some steam and, swear into the abyss, whatever you got to do, he was eventually back out there. But, the whole thing is just indicative of how everything's going for the Rangers right now, because I don't think we've ever seen Igor do that. We've seen him get pulled out of games before. Any goalie in the NHL that's ever played this sport, you're going to get pulled out of a game sooner or later. And, obviously, Igor's no exception. But we've never seen him just storm off to the locker room by himself. And he did that here. And again, my bigger concern is how he played in this game rather than what he did or did not do once he was yanked out of the game. It also begs the question, all of this, do you just go right back to Igor Shesterkin for Monday's game against the Panthers? I feel like you almost have to. I mean, you have to let this guy try to get right. If you could go with Quick. I guess it's an option. But at a certain point, you're going up against an elite team. You got to go with your franchise goalie, even if he is struggling. So I think he'll be back out there. I would want him to be back out there. We'll see how it goes. The Rangers have a back-to-back not too long from now, so you can always throw Jonathan Quick out there for one of those two games. We'll see. But, yeah, I would probably go back to Igor, and I would probably expect that that's what's going to happen. We might do an episode before the Rangers-Panthers game. We'll see. We'll see how everything goes. I am looking to eventually, though, talk a little bit about the World Juniors. The Rangers have 3 players participating. One of them, of course, is Gabe Perreault, who absolutely lit it up in the United States' first game against Germany. And we saw Latvia get a huge upset over Canada. That was pretty wild to see. Definitely looking forward to talking about that tournament in general, and certainly the 3 Ranger prospects who are competing in said tournament. But we can call it there for today. Once again, if you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.